Captain Ethan Ward stood on the observation deck of the starship Vanguard, his eyes scanning the endless blackness of space. Stars glimmered like scattered diamonds, and in the distance the planet Veralia rotated slowly, its oceans reflecting sunlight in shimmering streaks of blue and silver. The station orbiting it, a massive structure of steel and glass, hung silently above the planet like a sentinel. Ethan had been sent here on a mission of diplomacy, exploration, and security. Humanity was expanding into the galaxy, encountering alien civilizations with intelligence and technology far beyond their own. Some were friendly, some cautious, and some dangerous. Today he would meet one of the most cunning diplomats in the sector, Lyra, a representative of the Erythrians, a species renowned for their intelligence and subtle manipulation. "Captain Ward," said Lieutenant Mara Collins, his communications officer, breaking his concentration. She handed him a tablet with a detailed schedule. "The Erythrian delegation will arrive in 2 hours. They are requesting full access to the station's council chambers for a private meeting." Ethan nodded. Could prepare a full security briefing. "And Mara, make sure the AI monitoring systems are active. I want every channel, every sensor, every data feed under observation." Mara hesitated for a moment. "Are you sure, Captain? Therions are diplomats. They've never caused trouble before." "That's exactly why I'm careful," Ethan replied with a faint smile. "Diplomats can be the most dangerous when they appear harmless." The Vanguard hummed quietly as Ethan walked toward the docking bay. The station's corridors were sleek and metallic, filled with humans and aliens working together. Robots glided silently, delivering supplies, while holographic displays showed planetary data and interstellar maps. When the docking clamps engaged, the bay doors opened with a soft hiss. Sleek Erythrian shuttle floated in, its surface reflecting the lights of the station like liquid metal. The shuttle's design was elegant, organic even, with curves that made it appear alive. Ethan watched as the door slid open, revealing Lyra stepping out. She was taller than most humans, with luminous skin that shifted slightly in color depending on the light. Her eyes were golden, sharp, and intelligent, scanning everything with an unsettling focus. She moved with grace, but there was a tension in her steps, calculated precision that made it clear she was always in control. "Captain Ethan Ward," she said in perfect galactic common, her voice smooth like silk. "It is an honor to meet the humans who have reached so far into our galaxy." "The honor is mine," Ethan replied, extending his hand. Lyra's fingers brushed his briefly, a gesture that was polite, but he sensed the subtle energy behind it, a test. She smiled, but it did not reach her eyes. Ethan noted the small detail. Humans often overlooked body language, but he had learned to read it well. They walked toward the council chambers, their conversation polite and formal. Lyra asked about Earth, the human colonies, and Ethan's own experiences in deep space. Her questions seemed innocent, but Ethan noticed patterns. She avoided answering direct questions about her own world. She framed her questions to lead him into revealing information without realizing it. Ethan smiled internally. He had expected this. Lyra was clever, skilled at probing minds for weaknesses. Most humans would be unaware, but he had trained for situations like this for years. "Your people are fascinating," Lyra said, her voice almost melodic. "So adaptive, so resilient, and yet so predictable at times." Ethan's eyes narrowed slightly. Predictable, perhaps, in some ways. "But humans have a tendency to surprise too." He said the words carefully. The Erythrians prided themselves on calculating every possible outcome. A little ambiguity would confuse even the most precise mind. They entered the council chamber, a vast room with panoramic views of the planet below. Holographic projectors floated in midair, showing planetary maps, energy readings, and population data. Ethan gestured for Lyra to take a seat at the table. "Shall we begin?" he asked. Lyra's golden eyes flicked across the room, noting every detail. She seated herself and extended her hands, resting them lightly on the holographic table. "Yes, Captain. I have come with a proposal, perhaps a question of trust." Ethan nodded slowly. "I am listening." Lyra's proposal was simple on the surface. She wanted to collaborate with the humans on exploring Virelia's energy resources. She spoke of mutual benefit, technological exchange, and interstellar peace. But Ethan could sense the subtle layers beneath her words. She mentioned certain energy patterns and locations with a casual tone, almost as if testing whether he had prior knowledge. As she spoke, Ethan's mind raced. He cross-checked her statements with the station's AI reports. Some of the locations she mentioned had been studied before, and the results did not match her description. Realized she was trying to manipulate him to make him reveal what the humans already knew about Virelia's unique energy matrix. Interesting, Ethan said slowly. I am curious about your sources. How do you propose we begin this collaboration? Lyra smiled, seemingly innocently. With trust, Captain? If you allow me access, I can show you the advanced techniques my people use. It will be enlightening for both of us. Ethan leaned back in his chair, pretending to consider her offer. Access must be earned, of course. I would expect transparency in return. Lyra's smile faltered, just slightly, an imperceptible twitch that only someone paying attention would notice. Ethan had noticed it. She thought she was masking her reaction, but humans were sometimes difficult to read because they focused on the wrong signals. After the meeting, Ethan returned to his quarters. He activated a secure terminal and began analyzing Lyra's behavior in detail. Every word, every gesture, every pause was logged and examined. He realized she had underestimated human foresight. Most humans would have revealed too much. But Ethan was trained to anticipate deception and misdirection. He prepared a subtle counter-strategy. If Lyra attempted to manipulate humans with false information, he would feed her controlled data falls yet plausible. So, he could track her intentions without revealing critical secrets. As night fell over the station, Ethan stood again on the observation deck. The planet below glowed faintly, oceans reflecting light like molten silver. Stars stretched endlessly beyond, infinite and silent. He felt a sense of calm. Humans had arrived in this galaxy not just to survive, but to thrive. And in this moment, Captain Ethan Ward knew something important. Intelligence, patience, and foresight could outmatch even the most cunning of beings. Lyra, somewhere in the corridors of the station, was planning her next move. But Ethan had already anticipated her steps. And in this quiet, suspended moment in space, he smiled. Knowing that the game had only just begun, he was already one move ahead. By the time the first light of the station's artificial sunrise spread across the metallic corridors, Ethan had completed his preparations. Sensors were tuned, AI systems were running predictive models, and every member of the crew had been subtly briefed to observe unusual behaviors. Lyra's next moves were predictable in a way, yet they would require finesse to counter. The human mind, with its creativity and unpredictability, had an advantage aliens sometimes overlooked. Ethan understood that fully. He touched the tablet in his hand, checking the docking bay feed. Lyra's shuttle remained docked, its occupants working quietly. Unaware that their diplomacy was being quietly scrutinized, Ethan whispered to himself, almost as a promise, "You think you can trick the human? But I have already seen the path ahead." And with that, the game began. The station's corridors were quieter than usual, almost eerily so. Captain Ethan Ward walked with purpose, his mind replaying every moment from the previous meeting. Lyra had presented herself as polite, cooperative and sincere, but every gesture, every carefully chosen word had a hidden layer. Humans often relied on instinct alone. But Ethan had learned long ago that instinct without analysis could be dangerous. He had anticipated Lyra's methods, but understanding them was only the first step. Now, he needed to observe her in action. "Captain," Lieutenant Mara Collins said as she joined him, "the AI monitoring systems have detected unusual activity in the delegation's shuttle. Nothing alarming yet, but their patterns are irregular." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Irregular how?" "They're not following the usual movement patterns. They're accessing restricted databases, subtle things, almost like they're testing the system," Mara explained. Ethan nodded, suppressing a small smile. "As I expected. Lyra is trying to feel out our knowledge and defenses without revealing her own. Let's prepare a controlled environment. We give her just enough information to keep her moving forward, but nothing critical. Mara glanced at him. Controlled environment. You mean a trap? Not a trap, Ethan corrected gently. A test. One where we learn what she values, what she fears, and how far she is willing to go to get it. Lyra appeared in the council chamber later that day, as if unaware that her movements were being tracked. She carried herself with the same calm elegance, her golden eyes observing everything. She greeted Ethan with a nod that was polite yet deliberate. "Captain Ward," she said, her voice smooth as always, "I trust you have considered my proposal. I am eager to begin our collaboration." Ethan gestured for her to sit. "I have. But before we proceed, I believe mutual understanding is necessary. Cooperation without clarity can be risky." Lyra's smile tightened slightly. "Of course. You humans value clarity highly. That is commendable." He leaned forward, adopting a casual posture that was anything but casual in thought. "I have prepared some data for you. It may help you understand the environment of Veralia better." He activated a holographic display. Floating images of the planet's surface, its energy nodes, and resource patterns appeared in midair. Lyra leaned in, her eyes scanning each projection with careful precision. "These patterns," she murmured. "Fascinating. I had heard only vague reports about them." "Your people are thorough in observation," Ethan replied. "But thoroughness alone is not enough. Interpretation is key. The energy fields here are complex, shifting, and sometimes unpredictable." Lyra tilted her head. "Unpredictable?" Ethan nodded slowly. "Even your data might mislead you if it is taken out of context. Patterns alone do not tell the full story. Observation must be combined with understanding." Her eyes flickered, almost imperceptibly, betraying a hint of curiosity, or perhaps caution. Ethan noticed. Small details like that often revealed more than words ever could. Over the next few hours, Lyra probed gently, asking questions that seemed innocent on the surface. She asked about energy extraction methods, sensor calibrations, and the role of humans in interpreting data. Each question, Ethan realized, was designed to make him reveal vulnerabilities or to confirm information she already suspected. But Ethan had anticipated each move. For every piece of data she requested, he offered information that was either incomplete, slightly misleading, or safely controlled. "Your people have remarkable adaptability," Lyra said, her tone almost admiring. "I expected more rigidity, more dependence on machines. Yet you think creatively, solve problems, innovate." Ethan allowed himself a small smile. Adaptation is necessary when exploring unknown worlds. A rigid mind rarely survives long. Lyra's eyes narrowed subtly, as if trying to measure whether he was simply being modest or genuinely aware of human potential. She had underestimated humans before. Perhaps she sensed that Ethan was different. The AI monitoring system provided. Ethan with real-time alerts about Lyra's subtle movements, tiny shifts in body language, pupil dilation, even micro-pauses before she spoke. It was like reading a book in a language designed to confuse ordinary humans. Using this data, Ethan began feeding Lyra false patterns, data that seemed authentic but was carefully crafted. He watched as she engaged with it, analyzing her reactions to see which aspects she would pursue further. It was a delicate balance. If he fed her too much false information, she might detect the deception. Too little, and she would sense human hesitation. But Ethan had spent years preparing for moments like this. He trusted his intuition, backed by careful observation. By the end of the day, he had learned more about Lyra than she had about him. Her priorities, her methods, even her patience could be measured. And in turn, she believed she was learning about human capability, ever realizing that she was being subtly guided by the very human she sought to manipulate. That evening, a minor incident occurred. One of the station's energy cores flickered unexpectedly, creating a temporary blackout in part of the docking bay. Alarms sounded briefly, and emergency lights bathed the corridor in red. Lyra reacted instantly, moving with precise steps and calm authority. Ethan observed silently, noting how she directed station personnel and adjusted her approach to the crisis. She was intelligent, quick, and capable, but her focus on efficiency revealed something important. She valued outcomes over understanding. Ethan intervened at the right moment, subtly redirecting her attention towards safe zones and allowing the AI to stabilize the system. He made it appear as if he was merely assisting, but in reality, he was monitoring her reactions to crisis management. After the lights returned to normal, Lyra gave a small nod, a gesture of acknowledgement. "Your people are resourceful," she admitted. Ethan smiled politely. "So are yours." But resourcefulness alone does not reveal intent. Her lips pressed into a thin line. She had realized he was observing her, but she could not yet determine how much he understood. The next day, Ethan continued the psychological dance. He invited Lyra to a simulation room, presenting her with holographic puzzles designed to test reasoning and strategy. The puzzles were based on Virelia's energy networks. It's complex enough to seem realistic, yet subtly controlled by Ethan. Lyra engaged with the puzzles, her golden eyes calculating, her mind working rapidly. Each solution she proposed was noted and analyzed by Ethan, giving him insight into her thought process. She was clever, capable of seeing multiple outcomes at once, but predictable in her approach. He allowed her to discover minor inconsistencies in the simulations, carefully observing how she reacted. Some Erythrians might have panicked or tried to exploit the inconsistencies aggressively. Lyra, however, adapted quickly, masking frustration with calm professionalism. Ethan realized this was her strength and her weakness. She trusted her intelligence, but she underestimated the unpredictability of human reasoning combined with foresight. By evening, Ethan had set the stage for the next phase. He sent subtle signals through the AI system, suggesting areas of Virelia's surface that supposedly contained rare energy deposits. Lyra, true to form, immediately displayed interest. "Captain Ward," she said, leaning forward slightly, "these areas? They seem promising. Do you have data confirming their potential?" Ethan allowed a thoughtful pause. "I have data, yes. But there are risks. The energy fields are unstable. Any miscalculation could alter the results significantly." Her eyes gleamed with curiosity. "Unstable? Fascinating. I would like to examine them personally." He smiled internally. She had taken the bait. She believed she was guiding the exploration, but in reality, Ethan had orchestrated the scenario to reveal how far she would go to gain advantage. Later, as the station's artificial night cycle began, Ethan returned to his quarters. He reviewed the day's observations, noting every detail about Lyra's strategy, her responses to unexpected events, and her willingness to take calculated risks. He felt a quiet satisfaction. Humans were still learning about the galaxy, still adapting to alien intelligence far beyond their own, but their ability to anticipate, strategize, and respond creatively gave them an advantage that even the most intelligent alien could not fully predict. Lyra, somewhere in the corridors of the station, believed she was leading the game. But Ethan had already seen several steps ahead. Each question she asked, each move she made, was being analyzed, recorded, and anticipated. As he looked out over the planet, its oceans glimmering like molten silver under the station's lights, Ethan whispered to himself, almost as a promise, "You may think you are ahead, Lyra, but the human mind is not so easily deceived." And with that, he prepared for the next day, when the real test would begin, a test of intelligence, patience, and the subtle game of strategy, where only the most observant and adaptable would prevail. The next morning, the station hummed with quiet efficiency. Captain Ethan Ward moved through the corridors with calm focus, aware that today could mark a turning point. He had been observing Lyra carefully, analyzing every detail of her strategy, every subtle cue in her behavior. And now he was ready to act not recklessly, but with precision. Lyra, as expected, arrived at the council chambers promptly. Her golden eyes scanned the room, calculating, measuring, as if she could read the very thoughts of those around her. She carried herself with elegance, every movement deliberate, every word a test. "Good morning, Captain," she said smoothly. I hope the data I requested yesterday has provided clarity. Ethan nodded politely. Yes, it has been. Enlightening. Your insights are appreciated. Key gestured for her to sit, hiding the small satisfaction he felt. He had already set a plan in motion, a plan that would make it appear she was leading, while in reality, she was walking straight into his strategy. The council chamber holograms flickered to life, displaying maps of Virelia's surface. Ethan pointed to a cluster of regions, areas he had deliberately marked as containing rare energy deposits. Lyra's eyes gleamed with interest as she leaned closer, her mind already racing through possibilities. These areas, she said softly, seem highly promising. Your people must have significant data to identify them. Ethan tilted his head, speaking with measured caution. We have some data, yes? But the fields are delicate. Missteps could cause instability. That is why I thought it best you examine them under careful guidance. Lyra's lips curved into a faint smile. I am always cautious, Captain, but curiosity drives me forward. Ethan's internal smile grew. She had taken the bait exactly as he expected. She believed she was uncovering hidden information, when in reality, he had carefully controlled what she saw and interpreted. The real test began when Ethan activated a holographic simulation of the energy fields. The projections shimmered above the table, showing complex flows of power across the surface of Virelia. The simulation was not entirely accurate. It contained subtle variations designed to gauge Lyra's reactions. Lyra moved her hands gracefully, interacting with the holograms. She adjusted patterns, altered flows, and traced energy currents with precise movements. Ethan observed silently, recording her methods. She was intelligent, capable of solving complex problems quickly, but her approach relied heavily on logic and prediction, leaving room for human intuition to outmatch her. Interesting, she murmured. The flow patterns here. They do not align with conventional understanding. Your simulations are unconventional. Ethan's smile was careful and unreadable. We adapt to what we observe. Conventional methods do not always apply to unpredictable systems. Her eyes flickered briefly, betraying a hint of frustration. She was realizing that the system was not as simple as it appeared, but she could not yet see that it had been subtly manipulated to reveal her approach, not the truth of Virelia's energy fields. As the session continued, Ethan introduced small errors into the hologram's sleight, inconsistencies that only someone as observant as Lyra would notice. She reacted immediately, adjusting the patterns with precision, showing her willingness to investigate and adapt. Each reaction, each adjustment, fed into Ethan's understanding of her methods. By the afternoon, Lyra was fully engaged, unaware that her every move was being analyzed. Ethan remained calm, appearing to observe her with casual interest, but in reality, he was orchestrating the flow of information to measure her priorities and weaknesses. An unexpected event occurred, just as the session seemed to be nearing a conclusion. One of the station's energy monitoring systems reported a fluctuation in the sector Lyra had just analyzed. Alarms. Remain silent, this was not a real threat, but Ethan allowed her to notice. Captain Ward, she said, her tone sharp. There is an irregular reading in the system. It appears to align with the regions we examined. Ethan nodded calmly. Yes, it is minor, but it could indicate instability if left unchecked. Would you like to examine it further? Lyra's expression tightened slightly. The opportunity to explore potential weaknesses in human systems was too tempting. Indeed, she replied. We should investigate immediately. Ethan motioned for the AI to feed subtle, controlled alerts to her systems, guiding her through the investigation without revealing any real weaknesses. She followed the signals, confident she was uncovering valuable intelligence, while in reality, she was being led by Ethan's design. As Lyra moved through the station, Ethan's mind ran through multiple scenarios. Each step she took, each decision she made, revealed not only her intentions, but also her reliance on predictable patterns of thought. He realized that while she was clever, her intelligence depended on logic and observation, not intuition. Humans, with their creativity and ability to anticipate unpredictably, could exploit that gap by the time she returned to the council chambers. Ethan had already reconstructed a detailed profile of her strategy. He knew which areas of Aurelia she considered most important, which types of data she would pursue aggressively, and where she would hesitate. "Captain Ward," Lyra said, leaning forward, "your simulations are most enlightening. I can see the potential here, though it is fragile." "Yes," Ethan replied, hiding his satisfaction. "Fragility can be a challenge, but also an opportunity. Careful observation and patience reveal what might otherwise be hidden." Lyra's golden eyes studied him. She sensed the subtle confidence in his tone, a confidence she could not yet interpret. Her curiosity was piqued. He was clearly aware of her methods, yet she could not discern how far his understanding extended. That evening, Ethan returned to his quarters. He reviewed every observation, every subtle cue from Lyra. He had learned more about her than she had about him. She had walked straight into the environment he had prepared, reacting exactly as he predicted. It was a reminder of the strength of human ingenuity, the ability to anticipate, to plan, and to execute with foresight. Lyra's intelligence was formidable, but she relied on predictability. Humans, by contrast, could combine observation with creativity and intuition, and moral reasoning, a combination that even the most cunning alien could struggle to predict. The next day, Ethan orchestrated a small test. He invited Lyra to a briefing room under the pretext of reviewing the day's findings. The room contained interactive holograms of Aurelia's most challenging terrains. Along with simulations of potential hazards, Lyra engaged immediately, her golden eyes bright with focus. She adjusted simulations, tested scenarios, and predicted outcomes with meticulous care. Ethan observed silently, feeding subtle hints and allowing her to uncover minor secrets that were entirely controlled. She believed she was leading the exploration, uncovering hidden truths and outsmarting the humans. But Ethan had already anticipated every move. Every reaction she displayed was being logged, analyzed, and incorporated into his strategy. By the end of the session, Ethan knew Lyra's approach in detail. He understood how she processed information, how she prioritized risks, and how far she would go to achieve her objectives. He realized that the next step would be crucial. It was time to let her believe she was in control, even as he guided her directly into a position where her plans could be countered completely. Lyra, for her part, left the room feeling confident. She believed she had made progress, that she had gained valuable insight into human operations and Varelia's energy systems. She did not yet realize that her observations were part of Ethan's design, that every choice she made had been anticipated and subtly directed. That night, as the station's artificial lights dimmed for rest cycles, Ethan stood once more on the observation deck. The planet below shimmered in the darkness, oceans reflecting silver starlight. He allowed himself a quiet smile. Humans had arrived in the galaxy, not only to explore, but to excel. They faced beings of incredible intelligence, cunning, and subtlety. Yet the human mind, creative, patient, adaptable, could match them step for step. He whispered to himself, almost as a promise, "You think you are leading, Lyra, but every step you take, I have already foreseen. The trap is set, and the game has only just begun." And with that, he prepared for the final phase, where observation and patience would give way to action, where the subtle game of strategy would reveal who truly held the advantage. The following morning, the station's corridors were alive with quiet activity. Scientists monitored energy flows from Varelia. Engineers maintained the core systems, and Ethan moved calmly among them. His mind focused on one purpose: understanding Lyra completely before making his move. Lyra had arrived early. As usual, her golden eyes scanning the room. She carried herself with the same poised confidence, but something had shifted in her expression. Subtle, almost imperceptible. There was tension under the surface, a flicker of uncertainty in the way she approached the simulations. "Captain Ward," she said, inclining her head politely. I have reviewed the projections from yesterday. The regions you suggested are intriguing. Your understanding of the energy fields is impressive. Ethan smiled faintly. Thank you, Lyra. But understanding is only part of the challenge. Predicting behavior, interpreting intent, that is often the greater test. Her eyes sharpened. She recognized the meaning behind his words, but she could not determine whether he spoke as a warning or as observation. That ambiguity, Ethan knew, would keep her guessing, and that was exactly the point. He invited her to the simulation room again. Holographic maps of Veralia floated above the table, displaying the planet's energy networks, patterns, and resource nodes. Lyra immediately focused, moving her hands to manipulate the holograms. Testing flow patterns, tracing energy lines, and adjusting simulations with meticulous precision, Ethan allowed her to explore freely. But he had introduced subtle variations in the data-controlled anomalies that seemed real enough to entice investigation. Lyra noticed them immediately, her eyes narrowing in concentration. These readings, she murmured, there are inconsistencies here. These fields, they do not behave as expected. Ethan leaned slightly forward. Yes, that is precisely why careful observation is necessary. Many overlook the nuances, assuming stability where there is none. Only through patience can true patterns be understood. Her lips pressed into a thin line. She realized that Ethan's system had been designed to reveal information, but she could not yet identify how much was authentic and how much was controlled. As the session continued, Ethan subtly guided her. He allowed her to discover certain areas that seemed critical while hiding the truly valuable energy nodes. Every action she took, every reaction she displayed, was noted and analyzed. He understood her priorities, her methods, and even the limits of her patience. Lyra, confident in her intelligence, believed she was uncovering secrets that humans had hidden. She probed deeper, attempting to predict outcomes, relying on her analytical mind. She had underestimated Ethan's foresight, his ability to anticipate her decisions and subtly direct her path. By mid-afternoon, Ethan was ready for the next step. He paused the simulations and addressed her directly. Lyra, he said, choosing his words carefully, I believe you have a goal here. You seek to understand not just the energy fields, but how humanity perceives and interacts with them. Am I correct? Her eyes widened slightly. She did not expect him to speak so openly about her intentions. How could you know? She asked softly, her voice tinged with surprise. Ethan remained calm. Observation, analysis, and understanding. Patterns of thought often reveal intent before action does. Your strategy has been careful, yes, but predictable in ways you may not have realized. Lyra leaned back, her mind racing. She had faced intelligent humans before, but never one who could anticipate moves with such precision. She felt both admiration and unease. You have been steps ahead from the very beginning, she admitted finally, her tone quieter than usual. Every subtle probe, every question. You anticipated them all.
What?
Ethan nodded. I observed, yes, but more importantly, I understood. Your approach relies on logic, on prediction. Humans combine logic with intuition, creativity, and adaptability. Those qualities are often underestimated. She studied him for a long moment, realizing the truth of his words. Her plan, carefully crafted over months, had been subtly unraveled without her even realizing it. Every step she had taken had been observed, recorded, and predicted. Ethan allowed a faint smile. Your intelligence is formidable, Lyra. I admire it. But intelligence alone is not always enough when facing unpredictability combined with foresight. Lyra's expression softened, a mixture of respect and frustration. She had underestimated human adaptability, and now the revelation was unavoidable. You have turned the tables, she said quietly. I thought I was in control, but you were, Ethan replied gently. You guided your own actions. But every move you made has allowed me to understand your methods, your priorities, and your limits. That knowledge is far more valuable than any single data point. She considered his words carefully. She realized the brilliance of his approach. Rather than confronting her directly, He had let her reveal her own plans step by step. Every discovery she believed she made was orchestrated to provide him insight. The station's AI provided real-time analysis, showing subtle energy fluctuations, minor stress markers in Lyra's physiology, and micro-reactions in her behavior. Ethan reviewed the data silently, confirming his observations. Lyra was intelligent, patient, and cautious, but she had a predictable pattern of trust and curiosity. Humans could exploit those patterns without deception or aggression. Lyra broke the silence. "Captain Ward, what is your true goal here?" Ethan leaned back slightly. "My goal? To protect the interests of humanity, to understand the intentions of those we interact with, and to ensure that knowledge is applied responsibly, and to demonstrate that even when faced with beings of immense intelligence, humans can stand their ground and excel." Her eyes flickered, a hint of surprise mixed with grudging admiration. She had intended to outsmart him, but instead, she had been guided to reveal her strategy, unknowingly allowing him to secure the advantage. Ethan then revealed a subtle, controlled version of the true energy nodes of Virali areas Lyra had not yet considered. He explained the potential risks and rewards, carefully emphasizing the challenges without revealing the most critical secrets. Lyra examined the projections, her mind recalculating rapidly. "These nodes, they are significant. I had underestimated their importance," Ethan nodded. "And that is precisely why careful observation, combined with foresight, is so critical. It allows one to anticipate risks and act responsibly, even in the presence of unknown variables." Her golden eyes softened, a mixture of respect and acceptance. She recognized that she had misjudged the human capacity for strategy and foresight by the end of the day. Ethan had fully mapped Lyra's approach. He understood her methods, her goals, and her weaknesses. He had turned her subtle manipulation into an opportunity for insight, proving that humans could not only survive in the galaxy, but thrive through intelligence, adaptability, and foresight. Lyra, while defeated in this subtle game, remained composed. She acknowledged the brilliance of Ethan's strategy, understanding that human ingenuity, patience, and observation had allowed him to see the path ahead before she had even taken her first step. "Captain Ward," she said finally, "standing with grace, you have taught me something valuable today. Not about the planet or the energy fields, but about humans. I see now that intelligence alone is not enough. Adaptability, foresight, and understanding are equally powerful." Ethan inclined his head. "And that is the strength of humanity. We are capable of observation, reasoning, and creativity all at once. It allows us to succeed, even when faced with challenges beyond expectation." As Lyra left the council chamber, Ethan reflected quietly. The game had shifted. She had believed herself to be the strategist, but in reality, the insight she had provided had allowed him to gain the advantage. The subtle art of anticipation, observation, and foresight had proven decisive. Humans had arrived in the galaxy not merely to explore, but to excel in facing beings of extraordinary intelligence. They had tools unique to their species: creativity, adaptability, intuition, and patience. Ethan knew that these qualities would continue to guide them in the galaxy, allowing them to navigate challenges that even the most cunning beings could not predict. Standing once more on the observation deck, he looked out at the shimmering planet below. The oceans reflected silver starlight, and the atmosphere glowed faintly under the distant sun. He felt a quiet satisfaction. Lyra had tried to manipulate, to deceive, to outsmart, but she had underestimated the human mind. And in that moment, Ethan understood a simple truth: humans are not merely survivors. They are thinkers, planners, and innovators. They can outmatch even the cleverest adversaries when patience and foresight guide their actions. He whispered to himself, almost as a promise. "You have tried to trick the human, but I was already steps ahead," and with that, he prepared for the final phase, the conclusion of the subtle game, where observation and foresight would give way to decisive action, and the true measure of human ingenuity would be revealed. The station hummed with quiet efficiency, a rhythm that seemed almost alive. Captain Ethan Ward walked the corridors with calm confidence, fully aware that today would mark the climax of the subtle game he had been orchestrating. Lyra, elegant and poised as ever, believed she was in control. What she did not know was that every step she had taken had guided Ethan closer to a decisive advantage. Ethan paused outside the council chamber, observing Lyra through the glass panel. She was reviewing simulations of Virelia's energy nodes. Unaware that she was about to encounter the culmination of her own revealed strategies, today, Ethan whispered to himself, the game ends, and human foresight prevails. Lyra entered the council chamber with her usual grace. Her golden eyes were sharp, alert, but there was a subtle tension beneath the surface. She had begun to sense that Ethan understood more than she had anticipated, but she still did not realize the full extent. "Captain Ward," she said politely. Inclining her head, "I trust we are ready to proceed with the next stage of our collaboration." Ethan gestured for her to sit. "Indeed, Lyra. But before we begin, I thought it would be prudent to review what we have discovered together. There are nuances that require careful attention." Lyra's curiosity was evident. She leaned forward, prepared to engage with the data, unaware that Ethan had carefully structured the discussion to reveal her intentions, and in doing so, neutralize her plan. The holographic projections flickered to life, showing the energy fields of Virelia in vivid detail. Ethan allowed Lyra to interact with the simulations freely, but every move she made had been anticipated. The areas she considered most valuable were subtly highlighted, guiding her along a path that would expose the limitations of her plan without endangering the station or its inhabitants. "You have done well," Ethan said, his voice calm and identifying critical nodes. "But there are factors that even the most careful analysis can miss." Ira's eyes narrowed slightly. "Factors?" she asked. "Yes," Ethan replied. "Energy flows are delicate. Instability can occur unexpectedly. Only careful observation, patience, and adaptability allow one to navigate the complexities safely." Lyra hesitated. She understood the logic, but her confidence wavered subtly. She realized that Ethan had been guiding her step by step, ensuring that the knowledge she gained was precisely controlled. Ethan then demonstrated the critical nodes, those that Lyra had not considered. These nodes were not only highly significant, but also fragile. Mishandling them could lead to catastrophic energy feedback. He explained their positions, potential risks, and rewards. Highlighting the necessity of careful action, Lyra examined the projections, her mind racing to reconcile her assumptions with the data Ethan provided. These nodes, I And that is the strength of human strategy. Observation, foresight, and creativity allow us to anticipate outcomes and adapt to circumstances, even when facing beings of extraordinary intelligence. Lyra's expression softened, a mixture of admiration and realization. She had tried to manipulate and outsmart, yet it was she who had been guided knowingly into a position where her plan could be safely controlled. The AI monitoring system provided real-time feedback, confirming Ethan's observations. Lyra's focus, her micro-reactions, and her adjustments to simulations all revealed the precise areas she valued most. Ethan now had the full picture: her methods, her priorities, her weaknesses, and could act decisively. He activated a controlled scenario, a simulation of energy extraction with potential instability. Lyra engaged immediately, confident that she was demonstrating her skill. She adjusted flows, analyzed outcomes, and predicted energy fluctuations with meticulous care. But Ethan had prepared this scenario to test one critical factor: her ability to recognize risk versus reward under pressure. As the simulation progressed, subtle anomalies were introduced. Lyra noticed them instantly, her golden eyes narrowing in focus. She attempted to correct the perceived errors. Unaware that Ethan had deliberately created them to measure her reactions, her adjustments revealed her approach to problem-solving: efficient, logical, and precise, but also her reliance on prediction and structured analysis. Ethan observed silently, understanding that while her intelligence was formidable, it had a predictable element that humans could exploit. Finally, Ethan spoke. "Lyra, these anomalies are not errors. They are opportunities to demonstrate foresight, adaptability, and judgment. How you proceed will determine the outcome." Her eyes widened slightly, realizing that she had been operating within a controlled environment all along. She had believed herself in command, but every step had been anticipated and guided. Lyra took a deep breath, then adjusted her strategy. She focused on stabilizing the nodes while preserving the integrity of the energy flows. Her confidence returned, tempered by respect for Ethan's insight. "You have designed this scenario carefully," she admitted. "It is not merely a test of knowledge, but of understanding, observation, and judgment." Ethan nodded. "Exactly. Intelligence alone is not sufficient. Understanding context, anticipating consequences, and adapting to change these qualities define success, especially in a universe filled with variables beyond comprehension." Her golden eyes met his, a spark of respect shining through. She realized that the human mind, combined with patience, foresight, and creativity, could match and surpass the cleverest strategies of other species. By evening, the simulation concluded successfully. Lyra had navigated the challenges, but in doing so, she had revealed the core of her strategy. Ethan had observed, learned, and subtly redirected her approach to protect the station and humanity's interests. "Captain Ward," she said quietly, standing with grace, "you have taught me something invaluable. Not about energy fields or planets, but about humans. You have shown that patience, foresight, and creativity can triumph even over intelligence that seems unsurpassable. And that is precisely why humans continue to thrive in the galaxy. We combine observation, strategy, and adaptability. These qualities allow us to succeed, even in situations that appear overwhelming." Lyra inclined her head, a gesture of respect. Though her plan had been neutralized, she acknowledged the brilliance of Ethan's approach. She understood that intelligence alone was not enough. Wisdom, adaptability, and human ingenuity were equally powerful. The next day, Ethan prepared a final demonstration for the Council. He presented Virelia's energy nodes, highlighting safe extraction methods and potential applications for interstellar collaboration. Lyra observed, now fully aware of Ethan's strategic mastery, and contributed cautiously, offering insights without attempting manipulation. The Council witnessed a remarkable display of human ingenuity. Ethan's combination of foresight, analysis, and creativity allowed humans to secure the planet's energy resources without conflict or loss. Lyra, though an alien of formidable intellect, recognized that she had been outmatched not through force, but through strategy and observation. Humans had arrived in the galaxy not merely to explore, but to excel. Their ability to anticipate, adapt, and act with insight allowed them to navigate challenges that other species might underestimate. As the session concluded, Lyra approached Ethan privately. "Captain Ward," she said softly, "I admit, you have outsmarted me without confrontation. I see now that human intuition, creativity, and foresight are formidable tools. I respect that." Ethan inclined his head. Respect is mutual, Lyra. Intelligence is valuable, but understanding, observation, and adaptability define true success. You have taught me much as well about strategy, patience, and the subtlety of thought. A quiet pause followed. In that moment, mutual respect bridged the gap between species. Lyra had attempted deception, yet she had encountered a human mind prepared for foresight, subtlety, and strategy. She acknowledged the brilliance of humanity without words of challenge, an acknowledgement that transcended rivalry. Later, Ethan walked once more to the observation deck. The planet below glimmered in starlight, oceans reflecting silver under the distant sun. He reflected on the events of the past days, the subtle games, strategic anticipation, the delicate balance of observation and action. Humans, he realized, were not merely survivors. They were thinkers, planners, innovators. They could face challenges that seemed beyond their capacity and emerge, stronger through foresight and ingenuity. Lyra's attempt to manipulate had failed, not through force, but through intellect, patience, and strategy. Humanity had proven its capacity to excel, even in a galaxy filled with beings of immense intelligence. Ethan whispered to himself, almost as a quiet declaration, "You tried to trick the human, but I was already steps ahead." And that is the essence of what humans can achieve. Intelligence, guided by foresight, patience, and creativity. He looked out at the shimmering planet once more, a sense of calm and satisfaction filling him. Humanity had proven that it could stand out among the stars. It's capable of understanding, anticipating, and excelling beyond expectation. The galaxy was vast, filled with challenges and mysteries. Yet humans, with their unique combination of creativity, adaptability, and insight, would continue to thrive, always ready for what lay ahead. And in that moment, Captain Ethan Ward knew that no deception, no cunning plan, no adversary could surpass the foresight of the human mind.